Hello, Aperture from Rogue Tactics here, coming at you with another Magical Musketeer video. This one for the deck profile for the 2020 March format that I'm playing in currently. Now, this deck is pretty cheap right now because of all the reprints and Dual Overload, Caspar and Starfire. You can pick up both for like under $1 right now, so this deck's core is incredibly cheap. Arguably one of the cheapest in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh sets right now. So I'd recommend picking those up if you want to play this deck. Anyway, let's get on to the profile. You're playing a Musketeer deck, so you gotta play your muskets. Free Caspar. Play something behind him, he searches a musket card. Second best musket overall. He's great, always play 3. And not much else needs to be said on him. You got your 3 Starfires. This is the best musket. You play something behind her, she specials another musket, depending on which one you need. She's a level 4 for rank 4 plays. Overall, amazing. Got your secondary class muskets. You got Magical Musketeer Kidbrave. You play something behind him. You discard a musket card, and you draw 2 cards. Simple, easy, reliable. He gets you what you want sometimes. While he isn't as good as, Caspar or Starfire, he's good to have in your hand if you have nothing else. You got Magical Musketeer Doc. Doc is in a strange spot where he's arguably the best musket overall, but going turn 1 with him is terrible because he does nothing. But if turn 2 happens and you happen to have him and literally any other musket, he becomes the best musket, just because he can recur anything from the graveyard that's a musket card. So you can infinitely loop things with like Wild, Doc, and Caspar. Very, very strong card, just not a turn 1 card. You got 1 Magical Musketeer Calamity. You play something behind her, and she specials a musket from the graveyard in defense. Combo Extender. She's really good if your opponent plays lots of back row, because you get a ton of muskets out. She's not very good to draw turn 1, kind of like Doc. But again, she's a rank 4, she has a usable effect, and she has decent attack for the muskets. 15? Ooh. And then 1 Magical Musketeer Wild. This is more of a preference than anything else. The profile I'm playing right now, like I said earlier, is a Mystic Mind profile. And this one helps a lot with the grind game, essentially letting you never deck out, and sometimes it'll just let you win the game. And this deck does play a lot of 1-ofs, and he's able to recycle them, which is very helpful in the long term. Now that's all the monsters, let's get on to the spells and traps. 3 Dark Ruler No Mores. Any deck that can play this in the main should be playing in the main right now. This card is still insane. This card is broken. This card breaks nearly every single turn 1 board in the format, and because muskets really only need 1 monster to go off, and this can be played behind a monster, this card's insane in this deck. It does literally everything. The only downside of this card is you can't Utopia double him. I don't even run that card, I don't like that card. So this card has literally no downsides in the variant that I play. I highly recommend playing 3 of these in the main. It is insane. Now on to the big card, Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine this format is so strong, it's letting random decks top. I believe Mystic Mine Trains just topped. People are overextending so much on their 20 negate first turn monster effect boards that they're unable to deal with Mystic Mine. While Mystic Mine is an unfair card, it's kind of needed at the moment to deal with all these stupid, I have Appaloosa with 4 and 3 other negates on the board kind of end boards. It's something that's probably going to get hit in the future, but right now, muskets are one of the decks that can abuse it the most because all they need is 1 monster to set it up. It stops hand traps, it stops monster effects, it stops nearly anything that hinders this deck, and even if we screw up and play this at the wrong time, we have Desperado to get rid of it, and we can Desperado our own musket, so we have no monsters on the field in case they go for something weird. It's so strong right now. If you're not playing 3 right now, oof, you're in for a rough time. Got some main deck muskets cards. Got Magical Musket Cross-Dom. Target something, turn it to 0/0, negates effects. One of the strongest spells in the game for what it does. It's a quick play, you can play it from your hand if you have a musket. It does everything. 3 of these in every single musket build. This card will save your life. Now into some preference choices for me. I play Forbidden Chalice. This is like playing a Cross-Dom, except generic, and it doesn't turn them to 0/0. It gives them a 400 attack boost, and it still negates their effects. It's one of the only outs muskets have to VFD, and it's also quick play disruption, something of which most musket players I see don't play, but I highly recommend using this, because just having a free just negate you can play behind a musket at any time to trigger them is insane. And even if you don't have something to negate on their side of the board, you can make, let's say, Max from the extra deck, summon some muskets, play one of these under one of the muskets targeting Max who's already been used, get its effect. I've won a few games doing that. It's kind of random and people forget you can do it. And overall, this is just kind of an old, generically good card that people forget about all the time. Now we have Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is Instant Fusion. Get you Thousand Eyes or Millennium Eyes. It can stop a hand trap. It can eat a monster. It can give you a monster for a link play. It can do a lot of things. And with Master Rule 5 coming up, I'm pretty sure this card is either going to get banned or hit to 1 of the two. So right now, 2 or 3 at least. Very solid card. 2 Mind Controls. Mind Control is Mind Control. You take a monster, it's not once per turn, you can play it behind a musket. You can basically do whatever you want with it, it gives you link plays. It's just a good card. It's arguably one of the best cards in the deck. The only downside of the card is it's not a quick play. But when the card is so strong on its own like that, it doesn't really matter. Now on to some weird tech choices. I play Set Rotation. You haven't seen the other field spell yet, but this is a quick play. It outs Spiral Resort. It outs Magical Meltdown when they play it. It's a very weird card. A lot of people can't afford to play it because they're not playing 2 field spells. But the other field spell I'm playing right now is Magical Midbreaker Field. Now this is a card people have forgotten about for a very long time. You can only activate at the start of your main phase 1 or 2. And while this card is face up on the field, during either player's main phase 1, neither player can target monsters with card effects, and neither player can blow each other's monsters up with card effects. This card outs Sleeper. If you're able to get this card out, and somehow you burn the Appaloosa or whatever, and you play this card, you get a free musket out. They can't stop it. This also stops some random pops and negates that exist, and if you somehow have an Avermax or some other big boss monster on the field, it protects it. And not only that, it says you can't activate field spells while this card's face up. We can just Desperado it. We can Ningirsu it. We have so many outs with this card, it's insane. And most of the time, you're not the one playing it. You're using Set Rotation to get yourself a Mystic Mine and get this to them face down. And when they flip it over, they can't play field spells anymore. And they can't pop your muskets, at least during main phase 1. It's a relatively strong card I've been using, and the Set Rotation combo with it is really strong against a lot of decks right now. Not being able to pop a musket on summon lets us go off, and this card essentially lets us do that. It is at 1 for what it is, and that's kind of strange for right now. And on to some more generic cards. Terraforming. Terraforming searches Mystic Mine. Terraforming is Terraforming. It does what it does, it's a good card, you play it behind a musket. Does everything. 1 Upstart. Draw a card, play it behind a musket, you get 2 cards, woo! Not only that, it's just a generic draw card. It's good, but I also play Reasoning. Now, Reasoning is a strange card. You think it would be bad in muskets because we only play 2 levels, but if you play it behind, let's say, Doctor, and they guess 3, and they get it right, you still get a card off Doctor because you've milled the musket card. Essentially, whenever you play this card behind anything, you are guaranteed to get 1 card, and at most you'll get 2 in a summon, which is really good. And they have a 50-50 chance of guessing this correctly, assuming they know what you're playing. If they don't know what you're playing, you'll probably just get a free musket summon, and that'll probably just win you the game anyways. But it's a very strong card. I wish we could play more of these, but it being at 1 really hurts. Now onto the musket spell and traps that I play. 3 Desperados. Pop something face up. Very strong card. Does what it does. Outs your own Mystic Mine. Outs a bunch of back row cards. It just does everything you need it to do. It's incredibly simple. It's a Trident on a stick. you basically always want to have at least one of these in your hands, and this is one of the cards that you recycle all the time. So always play 3. Now I don't play as many musket cards as most other people, because I find, they're once per turn, but they're a lot of the times bricky when you do that. So I play 1 Crooked Crown, 1 Dancing Needle, and 1 Last Stand. Crooked Crown, it's musket plays, lets you summon another one. Sometimes you can block a zone behind their Link monster and stop their plays. That's kind of rare, but hey, it's still good for what it does. Dancing Needles is really good for stopping recycling effects, and because muskets don't have any built-in graveyard negation, it's a strong card. The only other graveyard negation the deck can really play is Mystic Mine, of which I'm playing 3 of, so this is more complementary to that. And 1 Last Stand is your budget red reboot. It negates a spell or trap's activation as long as you have a musket in the field. Opening this card against a large majority of decks is dead, because most decks right now are just spam 5 monster negates, and they don't set solemns or anything, like really. Altergeist has really fallen in popularity, so I've moved this to 1. It's still a strong card, you can play more than 1 if you want, but in the current format I don't believe you need anything more than 1. Now let's move on to the extra deck. I play some generic rank 4 Xyz, that being Fistdweller number 60. Fistdweller's a Fistdweller. It just stops graveyard effects, one thing this deck can't really do on its own. And number 60 allows for some really strange plays where you can revive muskets or do some strange attack shenanigans. It's one of the only other generic rank 4s that you can just kind of make and go off with, and people won't expect it, and there's a lot of weird situations where you can like double attack or draw cards and stuff that'll make you win the game. I use this almost every other game in just random scenarios, especially when people end up popping your muskets or you have a key musket card or whatever in the graveyard, you just want it back. You can just bring them back. You got your 2 instant fusion targets. Thousand Eyes, Millennium Eyes, eat a monster, stop a monster effect, or eat a hand trap. Simple, easy, instant fusion's instant fusion. You should probably play those too. You can play Mud Dragon or all those other targets if you really want, but I'm not playing Gravity Controller, so they're not really as useful in my deck. We got Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh eats the Millennium Eyes and the Thousand Eyes. That's all it really does. It also gets over Lost World's token, which is pretty good, so you should probably play this in the current meta. You got your 3 Magical Musketeer Max. This card's broken. The best Link 1 of the game. It does everything. It searches all your cards, specials all your cards. And this is more of a format where people are playing like 4 to 5 monsters in the main, and like 1 spell and 1 trap. So at the very least, you get to choose which effect he does. And that's very strong, and if you resolve this card against the large majority of decks right now, you win the game. And especially with the ability to use Mystic Mine, he just kind of sits there at 1 after searching 5 cards, and your opponent desperately struggles to get over the Mystic Mine, and you just kind of pop him with like the 1 Desperado, and you're like, hey, get over this. And a lot of time they can't. He is insane. Got some generic Link 2s. You got Security Dragon. If he's co-linked, he can bounce a card once while he's face up. He originally was used to out Colossus, but you know how that went. But he's just kind of a generically good card. You can just bounce some things that you don't expect him to be able to do. And a lot of people don't remember this card exists, so that's also a plus. Got your standard Nightmares. Pop a monster, pop a spell or trap. Max always points down, so having any of these with him, they get their additional effects. So, good to make them. Got some Link 3s. I have Topologic Trispania. It's an anti-back row card. A lot of decks right now aren't playing that many back row. The main one that is Salmon Great, and that's already a rough matchup to begin with, but you can win that one. And this is more for like continuous spells and traps. It outs a lot of things, and sometimes the arrows and the banishing monsters kind of trigger some random effects, and it's a solid card. If you're not playing against a lot of back row, you can cut it for something else. But if you're still scared of like Altergeist or Salmon Great, it's a fairly strong card for what it is. And 1 Ningirsu. You need to play this card. Ningirsu, while he doesn't look like it, is arguably the best extra deck monster we have. He untargetably outs cards, so you can play him under Magical Midbreaker Field. You can play him under Mystic Mine to out himself, and then out another card, so you have no monsters. You can use him to out the Mystic Mine. He gets over untargetable cards. He's one of the only outs you have to, let's say, Max or BLS. He outs Spiral Sleeper if you somehow manage to get him out and just send it to the graveyard. He's insane. The only downside to him is his point down. But you play Link 4, so you can at least play something else. If you don't have this card in your extra deck, get him. He is insane. And now for the generic Link 4s. Unchained Abomination. A lot of people weren't playing him originally, but being able to pop like 3 to 4 cards every turn and triggering off of Desperado is insane. He also triggers off of Mystic Mine, so if your opponent's like, oh, let's go down to 1 monster, and then Mystic Mine pops, he gets a pop, and then another pop at the end phase. People don't know that. I've won quite a few games doing that, and he is a generically strong card. You can make him with Ningirsu and any musket. You'll make him a lot of the time. And then the other Link 4, Max. Max is Max. He protects your other muskets, and some decks can't actually get over him on his own. And the benefit of just not being able to attack the muskets behind him is incredibly strong. He's more of a, if you can make him type boss monster. The large majority of the time, you're probably going to make this. And now onto the side deck. When I said I was scared of back row decks, I really meant it. I played a lot of Salad, I played a lot of Ultra Geist, and a lot of those matchups are very hard for muskets, so my side deck reflects that. I have 3 Cosmic Cyclones. Cosmic Cyclone is Cosmic Cyclone. Out to back row, it's a quick play, you can trigger a musket. It's really good for what it is. Got 3 evenly matched. I know, a lot of people main deck this card right now, but I've found in muskets, because you can't play it behind something, Dark Ruler is just better than it right now. Of course you can play it in the main if you really want to, but against the large majority of decks that I'm playing against right now, it's prepared for. Because literally everyone is playing this card right now, everyone expects this card. It's really strange. It's still a very, very strong card, but I don't think it deserves a main deck spot right now, because Dark Ruler kind of stops everything and is unrespondable to for the majority of boards. But this is respondable to, and you give your battle phase. So hey, it's still strong, still play it, but it's more of a preference choice on where you put it. And then I have 3 anti-magic arrows. This is just red reboot essentially. If your opponent sets 5 passes, you wait for them, stop, you go enter battle, and they'll say, oh okay. And then you activate this because you have player priority. You force them not to be able to play anything, and you just play for free, because they can't play any cards, because they can't flip over their spells and traps. This card has seen a resurgence in muskets. Most of the muskets that are topping are playing this card. I highly recommend playing it. It's a very, very strong card against back row, and it's just a good card overall. With the loss of Red Reboot, do get that. Now, the rest of the side deck is focused around if you're forced to go first. While we do have a bunch of cards that, can negate, can pop, can banish, all these strange effects, you still have troubles against, let's say, dinosaurs if they make you go first. So how do you stop that? Well, just don't die. You can play Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, and this card, you just don't die. There's no downside to playing it. You can play multiples of them. In the large majority of cases, when you use this card successfully, you'll gain like 30,000 life points, and you'll live for like 2 to 3 turns. Even if you do brick and you play against, let's say, a Spiral player, they'll give you like 50,000 life points, and at bare minimum, that's 2 free turns because they can't deal that much damage. And in the good scenario, your opponent will just stop, and you'll be like, oh, I guess I can play the game. It's like you went second overall anyways. I really enjoy this card. I have won many a game by just playing this card, my opponent just keeping going. But hey, it's just a fun card. And then I play Demise of the Land. We're playing Mystic Mine. We can abuse it. This card you can play behind a musket to set up Mystic Mine to search a card and get Mystic Mine out. It's so strong. No one expects it. Literally every deck specials. So it's going to be triggered at one point. And no one sides Twin Twisters against muskets. They'll side like Lightning Storm. So like, whatever. And if they do use the Lightning Storm, it's going to be on the musket. Because once you get rid of the musket, the back row stops. And if they ever see you set a card in muskets, they're just confused. They just don't know what it is. And then we have one Metaverse. the holy trio summoning Mystic Mine during your opponent's turn. And literally getting Mystic Mine out when they have like one monster will win you a lot of games. It's an insane card right now. It's insane going first, it's insane going second. It'll do whatever you want it to do, and once you learn how to play around it correctly in Muskets, it's such a beneficial card that you won't understand how the deck functions without it. Well, anyways, that is my Magical Musketeer deck profile for the March 2020 Yu-Gi-Oh! Format, focused on Mystic Mine. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.